And I think that the newly installed Premier Stephen Miles has had such a rocky start to the top job. This week he had to actually apologise for misleading Parliament after it emerged he had lied about sending a text message to a fellow MP, Ali King, during parliamentary question time. He denied sending it, and then a photo emerged taken by another LNP backbencher who's also apologised. Campbell Newman joins us. How do you get away these days, Campbell? Good evening. Great to have you with us again with lying in Parliament.
Well, it was a really unfortunate week for the Premier, and quite needless because it, in a way it was a storm in a teacup. Just recapping on what you'd said, essentially last year during a debate, he actually sent a text with some advice on what a particular MP should actually do in the Parliament, and this MP jumped up and made a statement at the time to the House. And it, big deal. I mean, but then to lie about it and to be caught out about it was really ridiculous, and it turned the week into a debacle for Premier Stephen Miles. It was just needless. And not only that, though, then there was a question about the right to information process. The LNP had obviously knew that they had something and had tried to get this information, and there was then there was no record to be found sort of thing, and yet there was this text in existence. The Labor Party tried, Steve, to muddy the waters by suggesting that it was terrible that this MP had, from behind an LNP MP, had photographed the text on the phone. And look, that's probably a fair point. But, at the end of the day, it was a bad week for a Premier who has an election in October.
Anastasia Palaszczuk, Campbell, had her good and bad days, weeks, months. She was heavily criticised during COVID, as most of the Labor premiers were. But she always seemed to be more in control than Stephen Miles. Watching him from a distance, he seems incredibly nervous, and he's got a nervous laugh about him. Is he an okay operator or not?
Well, he's been the sort of head kicker behind the scenes during the Palaszczuk era. And I actually thought he had a pretty good start. If you go from when he took over late last year, early New Year, January, February, he was repositioning himself as the leader. He never used to wear suits. He never used to wear ties. Suddenly he was doing that when he should have been. He had to deal with some cyclones and flooding, etc., and that's always a great opportunity for a political leader. And I thought there was quite a reset coming on, and indeed the Courier Mail's poll that they showed a few weeks ago showed the LNP in a particularly bad position with a primary of only around about 34%. Now, it was called as being 50-50, but the LNP need to get their primary up with a 4 in front of it. But look, the last couple of weeks haven't been good, so it's starting to fray at the edges. And you're right, he does sort of have this nervous manner about him. He does sort of earn the nickname that he's I think that's circulating now of Giggles, which isn't particularly good when you're in a position like that. But we will see. I think it's a bit of a seesaw. Look, the LNP are now really starting to take some bark off him, which they needed to do.
So let's turn our attention to a job you know well, and you put me back in my box a couple of weeks ago because you reminded me that the Lord Mayoral election in Brisbane is unlike any other Lord Mayoral election around the country because, of course, the Brisbane City Council controls all of the city of Brisbane. So you've got Adrian Shinner hoping to hold on for the LNP. He's got a challenge from Tracy Price from Labor. Then we've got this bloke who lives on the houseboat, Jonathan Stringer Nathan. Where's this all going to end up?
Well, it is very interesting, and Steve, just a bit more context for interstate viewers. This is the largest election in Australia. So you have a direct election for Lord Mayor, over 600,000 eligible voters, and then you have 26 little mini electorates, wards, where you get to vote for your local councillor as well. So it's a big deal. At the last election, Shriner had a primary of just under 48%, the Labor Party around 30%, and the Greens at 15%. This contest has really been quite curious. It's been shaping up as a battle between the LNP and the Greens. And I know the LNP are very concerned about a situation where they get Schrinner back up as the Lord Mayor, but they have sort of a minority sort of position, if you like, in the chamber, with the Greens and the Labor Party sort of holding the whip hand. And you know, the Lord Mayor of Brisbane's got significant power to actually make policy and sort of deliver things for the city. But if you don't have the numbers in the chamber, as I didn't in my first term, 04 to 08, it is particularly tricky. The trouble with the Greens here too, by the way, and it's a good thing, I think, Steve, is that they are extreme left-wingers. You know, look, I'd almost say to the point that Jonathan Shree has been espousing policies that are almost of the Communist Party, sort of essentially a confiscation of property, in this case the Eagle Farm racecourse, to turn it into affordable housing. He isn't, though, an idiot. He's very, very clever, and he's got a pitch that's really designed to get young voters who don't have, I guess, the background and the knowledge of failed policies of the past in relation to, say, rent and housing affordability. He's singing a siren song. So it's on the 16th in a week's time. And I think it'll be quite instructive because it'll also give us some pointers about how things are shaping up for that state election.
For the rest of the country, I mean, when you bid for an Olympic Games and win that Olympic Games, it's the city and the state that bid for it, and so the city council has some direct impact on it. What are those three's view on knocking over the Gabba or leaving it and renovating it?
Well, I think they've all got to the point now where no one is going to espouse that. And to be fair, I think Shree, from an earlier position, has been saying that. But Schrinner took a very strong stand against the state government on that and some other issues to do with the stadium. So I guess there's a bit of a unity ticket there at the moment. I mean, the penny has dropped, I think, for all politicians in Queensland, that the games were becoming quite unpopular, which is a great pity because I strongly support them. But they're becoming unpopular because, Palaszczuk had embarked on this trajectory of spending too much money on sort of the glamour stadium and venue projects as opposed to the lasting legacy of, roads and public transport and other community infrastructure. So I think these three contenders at the debate in the last few days, the Lord Mayoral debate, all really were lining up to sort of say that they wanted to be very frugal in the way they approached the games.